Archangel Michael has arrived with a message so urgent, so precisely timed for your life, that he could not wait another hour to deliver it. Listen carefully. Within the next 7 hours, a wave of divine goodness is going to sweep through your circumstances in a way that nothing in your recent memory has prepared you for. This is not gentle encouragement. This is not a soft whisper meant to fade by evening. What Archangel Michael carries today is a decree, a sealed order from the throne room, and it has already left heaven's gates with your name branded across its surface. Do not close this moment. Do not scroll past what was orchestrated for your ears alone, because the blessing that is hurtling toward you right now, the one that will land before this day turns into tomorrow, is something you almost forfeited by walking away too many times before. Not today. Today your feet are planted and your spirit recognizes the weight of what is being spoken over your existence. Archangel Michael says, I have watched you survive seasons that should have buried you. I have seen the way you dragged yourself through corridors of silence where no voice answered your cries. Not one tear fell without my knowledge. Every word you whispered into the darkness landed on a desk in heaven that has your file permanently open. And today, the response to those accumulated requests is being dispatched all at once. 7 hours. That is the window. Not because I operate on deadlines, but because the alignment of what I have been assembling behind the curtain reaches its completion point inside this narrow stretch of time. The people have been moved. The doors have been unlocked. The resources have been released from accounts you did not know existed in your favor. All of it converges within 7 hours. And your only assignment right now is to remain in this place long enough to receive the full briefing on what is about to transform your reality from the ground up. Stay with me now, because what I am about to unfold requires your full presence. Archangel Michael is speaking directly to the one who has carried weight that nobody else could see. You perfected the art of appearing fine while your insides were collapsing under pressure that had no name and no witness. You walked into rooms wearing composure like armor, and nobody thought to ask what was underneath it because you made the struggle look so effortless. But heaven saw through every performance. Heaven counted every night you lay awake bargaining with the ceiling for one single breakthrough, one open door, one sign that the path you were walking was not a circle leading nowhere. Michael says, I memorized the rhythm of your breathing on those nights. I knew exactly when exhaustion finally overtook worry and pulled you into restless sleep. I cataloged every morning you opened your eyes before the alarm. Already heavy, already bracing for another round of endurance that nobody was going to applaud. You did not collapse. You did not surrender. You tied your shoes and stepped back into the fight with nothing but raw willpower and a thread of faith so thin you were embarrassed to call it belief. That thread, that fragile strand you almost apologized for, held more than you will ever understand. It held open a channel between your heart and my hand that never closed. Not for 1 second. Not during your worst season. Not during the chapter you swore would be your last. I want you to hear this clearly. The suffering you endured was not a punishment. It was not heaven ignoring your file. It was not cosmic indifference wearing a holy mask. Every ounce of that pressure was refining something inside you that could not have been shaped any other way. What emerges from that fire carries an edge and a brilliance that comfortable seasons could never produce. You have been in the forge, and today marks the moment the craftsman pulls the finished work out of the flames and says, it is complete. If that last sentence reached the center of your chest, if something inside you recognized the truth of those words before your mind could catch up, then stop right now and say amen in the comments. Just that one word. Let it be your signature on the agreement between your spirit and heaven's timeline. That single word carries more authority than you know. Now listen to what Archangel Michael reveals about the nature of what approaches. The good that is coming in these 7 hours is not random. It is not a lucky break tossed from the sky like confetti at a parade. What is moving toward you has roots, deep ones. Roots that stretch all the way back to the moment you first asked heaven for help and wondered if the ceiling above you was made of stone instead of sky. Every unanswered prayer you accumulated, every petition that seemed to dissolve into vapor, was actually being stored in a vault that has your initials carved into its door. And that vault is about to crack wide open. When it arrives, and it will arrive before this day closes its eyes, you must not treat it as an accident. That was engineered timing, orchestrated by hands that have been working underground for months, while you saw nothing happening on the surface. I build in places your eyes cannot reach, and by the time you notice the result, I have already completed the entire infrastructure. Your faith, even when it felt pathetic to you, activated something. It kept the construction moving. Every time you chose to trust even slightly, right, you were pouring fuel into an engine you could not see. And that engine is now fully running. That restlessness you feel right now, the one with no obvious cause, that is the rumble of divine machinery reaching full speed beneath your ordinary day. What Archangel Michael is building in your life right now has a structure you cannot yet perceive. But let me give you the blueprint so that when the walls start rising, you will not be shocked. You will be ready. The foundation was laid during your hardest season. I know that sounds counterintuitive. You expected your worst chapter to be waste, rubble that would need to be cleared before anything new could stand. But that is not how I build. I use the rubble. I incorporate the shattered pieces into the base layer because broken material bonds differently than smooth. It grips, it interlocks. It refuses to shift under pressure precisely because it was broken first. Every disappointment you swallowed became a brick. Every betrayal you survived became mortar. The rejection that made you question your own worth became the cornerstone. Because only someone who has been pushed to the floor knows how to build from ground level with absolute precision. You are not damaged goods standing before an architect with standards you cannot meet. You are the most qualified builder in the room, because your hands know the weight of every material I work with. The structure I am raising in your life has rooms you have not imagined yet. Not because your imagination is small, but because you have been so busy surviving that you forgot to ask what thriving looks like. I did not forget. While you were focused on getting through each day without falling apart, I was designing chambers for joy. I was drafting hallways for purpose. I was engineering windows that face a sunrise you have never seen before but will soon stand in front of, with your mouth open and your hands trembling with gratitude. Michael says, there is a specific area of your life where stagnation has been so complete that you stopped calling it a problem and started calling it just the way things are. You domesticated your disappointment. You gave it a chair at your table and a plate at every meal. You learned to live alongside unfulfilled longing as if it were a permanent roommate whose lease could never expire. But I am serving eviction papers today. That stagnation, that frozen ground that has not budged despite everything you tried, is about to hear a command from the same voice that told the Red Sea to split. And what opens for you in these 7 hours will be the first visible crack in a wall you assumed was permanent. Do not underestimate what a single crack can do. Daylight enters a sealed room through a gap no wider than a fingernail. What I am, starting in the next 7 hours, does not need to arrive as an earthquake. It can arrive as a whisper in a conversation you were not expecting. It can show up as a phone call that changes a single number in your financial equation. It can manifest as an idea landing in your mind while you are standing in line at a grocery store. An idea so clear and so perfectly timed that you will know it did not originate inside your own thinking. That is my delivery method. I plant seeds in the soil of ordinary moments and let them crack open where no one is looking. Right now, Archangel Michael is walking through the corridors of your situation with the authority of someone who holds the master key. Every locked compartment that has kept good things away from you, Every sealed passage that blocked promotion, healing, reconciliation, provision, or peace is being inspected. And, one by one, the doors that belong to your assignment are being marked for opening. Not every door will open simultaneously. That would overwhelm a system that has been operating under restriction for too long. I release blessings in sequence, each one calibrated to arrive at the precise moment your capacity has expanded enough to hold it without breaking. This is the part where Archangel Michael speaks to the way you have been thinking about time. You have been measuring your progress against clocks that were never yours. Someone else's promotion timeline. Someone else's healing speed. You held their ruler against your life and concluded that you were behind. But you were never on the same track. What I am building for you requires a deeper foundation. And deeper foundations take longer to set, but they hold structures that taller buildings require. You are not late. You are being built for height. And the moment you stop apologizing for your pace, the moment you stop flinching when someone else announces their blessing while yours still feels invisible, is the moment you free up energy that has been wasted on comparison and redirect it toward reception. Receiving is an active posture. It requires open hands and a mind that is not cluttered with someone else's scoreboard. Let me tell you what is specifically shifting in the next 7 hours. The atmosphere around your finances is undergoing a recalibration. I am not speaking in vague spiritual generalities. I mean the actual flow of resources in your life is being redirected by hands you cannot see. Decisions are being made right now in offices you have never entered. Calculations being run on spreadsheets you will never see. And the sum total of those invisible movements will produce a tangible result in your financial landscape before this window closes. Not because money is the point, but because the freedom that adequate provision brings is a tool I need you to have for the next phase of your assignment. Now Michael speaks about the signs. You will begin to notice them if you pay attention. The first sign is a sudden lightness in an area that has felt heavy for months. It will not come with an announcement. There will be no trumpet sound and no visible messenger standing at your door with a scroll. Instead, you will be doing something completely mundane: washing a dish, folding a shirt, driving a route you have driven 1,000 times. And, without warning, a weight will lift from your shoulders that you did not even realize you were still carrying. Your first instinct will be to ignore it. Your second instinct will be to test it, to poke the spot where the pain used to sit and see if it returns when provoked. Do not do that. When I remove a burden, I remove it completely. You do not need to verify the absence by recreating the conditions of the wound. The second sign is a thought, not an anxious one. Not the spinning carousel of worst-case scenarios that your mind has been riding like a broken fairground attraction. This thought will be clear. It will arrive like a glass of clean water set down on a table in front of you by an invisible hand. And it will contain an answer. Not a riddle. Not a spiritual puzzle that requires 3 commentaries and a theology degree to decode. A straightforward, practical, immediately applicable answer to something you have been wrestling with for longer than you want to admit. When that thought comes, write it down. Do not trust your memory to hold it, because the enemy of your progress knows exactly how to cloud a breakthrough with distraction 30 seconds after it lands. The third sign is a person. Someone will appear in your awareness today who has not been there recently. A name will surface. A face will flash across your inner vision. A message will arrive from someone you have not heard from in a period of time that made you assume the connection was permanently severed. This person is carrying a piece of the puzzle that I am assembling in your life right now. Not every reconnection is accidental. Some are divine insertions into a timeline that was missing a critical component. Do not dismiss it as coincidence. Coincidence is the word people use when they cannot see the hand that arranged the meeting. Archangel Michael says, "The reason I am giving you these specific markers is because I want you to recognize my movement in real time. I am tired of watching my children receive blessings and then spend 3 years wondering if it was really me or just luck. I am removing that ambiguity today. When the blessing lands, and the sign I described matches what happens, you will have no room left for doubt. You will know that the same voice speaking to you right now is the same hand that moved the pieces into position. That is intentional. I want your faith to be fortified by evidence, not exhausted by mystery. If you believe that this kind of ongoing divine communication is something your spirit needs to hear regularly, if these words are reaching places inside you that have been starving for exactly this frequency, then take one moment right now and tap that subscribe button. Not for numbers, not for algorithms, but because every time you return to this channel, you are walking back into a room that was built for your restoration. Subscribe today so that when Archangel Michael speaks again, you are already seated at the table waiting. Now, let me take you deeper into the mechanics of what is being assembled behind the curtain. The blessing coming in these 7 hours has a compound nature. That means it will not manifest as a single event that fires once and fades. It will arrive as the first domino in a chain that will continue falling for weeks, for months, for an entire season that will look so different from what you just survived that people will ask you what changed. And the honest answer will be, I did not change anything. Something changed for me. Something moved that I did not push. A door opened that I did not knock on. That is the fingerprint of divine intervention, and it is unmistakable once you learn to read it. Let me tell you about the timing of this chain reaction. The first event, the initial domino, will happen within the 7-hour window I have declared. But the ripples from that event will continue to spread outward like waves from a stone dropped into still water. The second wave will arrive within days. The third within weeks. And by the time you reach the end of this season, you will look back at this moment, this exact intersection of your attention and my voice, and you will trace the entire trajectory of your turnaround back to a single point. Right here, where you almost scrolled away but chose to remain. Where the algorithm fed you 1,000 distractions, but your spirit locked onto the one channel that was carrying a genuine word from the throne room. That decision, that is the hinge moment. And you are standing on it right now. There is something else that Michael wants to address before moving forward. Your body has been holding tension that your conscious mind stopped noticing years ago. The tightness across your upper back, the jaw that clenches while you sleep, the shallow breathing that became so normal you forgot what a full inhale even feels like. These are not just physical symptoms. They are the residue of a spirit that has been bracing for impact for so long that it forgot the posture of receiving. Now Archangel Michael turns to the history that shaped your current position. I know you have been living as though the worst chapters of your past wrote the final pages of your future. As though the patterns you survived were permanent features of your landscape rather than temporary weather systems passing through an otherwise fertile region. But I need to correct that assumption right now because it is actively blocking the very delivery I am trying to make. A delivery truck cannot reach a house whose owner has barricaded the driveway with the debris of old disappointments. I need you to clear the road, not by pretending the disappointments never happened, but by refusing to let them serve as your prediction model for what comes next. Here is what happened. Somewhere along your journey, you crossed an invisible line where the self-protection became your primary operating system. You stopped expecting good things, not because you lost faith entirely, but because expecting good things and being disappointed hurt more than expecting nothing and being right. So you lowered the bar. You pulled your hopes down to ground level where they could not fall far enough to injure you. And over time, that lowered bar became your normal. You forgot that you ever stood in a season where anticipation was not a threat but a thrill. Where waiting for something good did not feel like setting yourself up for another crushing blow. I wanted to name that shift because naming it is the first step toward reversing it. You learned somewhere, perhaps through a specific betrayal, perhaps through a series of small erosions that wore your confidence down grain by grain, that wanting things was dangerous. That desire was a setup, that the safer path was to keep your eyes low and your expectations buried. And, my child, that lesson saved you for a while. It kept you functional when functionality was all you had the energy for. I do not condemn this survival mechanism, but I am telling you now, with the full authority of the throne room behind my voice, that the season requiring survival tactics has ended, and the software you installed to protect yourself during the storm is now blocking the sunlight that the storm was always meant to clear the way for. This is the first major revelation Archangel Michael delivers to you today. The very instinct that kept you alive during your hardest chapter is now the lock on the door that your blessing is trying to enter. Your guardedness, your emotional armor, your refusal to hope at full volume. These were brilliant strategies for a battlefield. But you are no longer on the battlefield. You are standing at the threshold of inheritance. And armor does not fit through the door of a banquet hall. You have to set it down. I know that terrifies you. I know that asking you to lay down your defenses feels like asking you to stand naked in a room full of people who have hurt you before. But I am not those people. I have never wounded you and called it a lesson. I have never dangled a promise to watch your face when I snatched it back. My track record with you is unbroken faithfulness, even when my faithfulness wore a disguise you could not recognize at the time. So today, I am asking you to do the bravest thing you have done in years. I am asking you to want something again, fully, without the emergency brake pulled, without the escape plan already mapped in the back of your mind. Want what I am bringing you, and let that wanting stretch your capacity wide enough to hold it when it arrives. That word just shifted something. I can feel it in the frequency of your attention. The armor is creaking. The guard is wavering. And in that sacred space between your old defenses and your new openness, something beautiful is breathing for the first time in years. Stay right there. Do not retreat into the familiar. The unfamiliar is where your miracle lives. And I want to speak to you about something that connects directly to this moment of opening. This voice that reaches you today. This channel that carries Archangel Michael's words into the wounded and the weary. It does not sustain itself on air. It is a mission. And missions run on the fuel of those who believe in what they carry. If this message has touched a place inside you that has been aching for exactly this frequency, if the words piercing through your screen right now are doing work that no human conversation has been able to accomplish, then I want you to know there is a way to stand with this mission. Through the link in the description or the pinned comment, you can visit our Ko-Fi page where you have the option to support this work through a membership or a one-time donation. Nothing is required. Nothing is demanded. But everything that is given becomes seed in the ground of a ministry that exists for one purpose only: to make sure the next soul who is drowning in silence the way you once were can hear the same voice that is pulling you out today. Your generosity does not go to a vanity project. It goes to the front line of a spiritual rescue operation. And heaven keeps a detailed record of every hand that builds the stretcher. Now, with that moment of partnership acknowledged, let me pull you back into the current that is flowing through this word. Because what Archangel Michael says next will reshape how you understand the last 5 years of your life. Archangel Michael says, I am going to talk about restoration now because that word is not a decoration. I hang on comfortable sermons. It is a force. It is a divine mechanism that operates with the same precision as the system that spins galaxies into orbit. And it has been activated in your life as of this hour. Somewhere in your journey, you were drained beyond what your reserves could handle. You poured into people who took without measuring what it cost you. You gave hope to others until your own supply ran so low that you could not remember what it tasted like in your own mouth. You carried responsibilities that should have been shared, but landed entirely on your back because nobody else stepped forward. And you were too proud or too tired to ask for relief. The world saw someone reliable. Heaven saw someone hemorrhaging. That bleeding is stopping today. Literally, I am applying pressure to the wound right now. The hemorrhage of energy, of emotional capital, of spiritual resources you have been losing through open channels for years is being sealed by the same hand that once stopped a flow, that 12 physicians could not fix. I need one touch. And that touch is happening right now in the invisible layers of your being. You will begin to notice the evidence of this restoration in surprising ways. The first thing that returns is your appetite, not for food, although that might change too. I mean your appetite for life, the desire to make plans, the willingness to think about next month without flinching. The curiosity that used to propel you forward before exhaustion ground it down to dust. You will catch yourself wanting things again, and the wanting will not feel like a trap. It will feel like the return of an old friend who left without saying goodbye and just appeared at your door one morning as if no time had passed. Place your hand over your heart again and declare these words with authority. I am no longer a survivor operating on emergency power. I am a restored vessel running on divine supply. What was drained is being refilled. What was silenced is finding its voice. And what Archangel Michael has spoken over my life in this hour will not return to heaven empty. Speak it. Let the sound of your own voice delivering those words surprise you, because there is power in hearing yourself say something you did not believe was possible 24 hours ago. And if something shifted in your chest as you spoke, if a warmth rose behind your eyes, or a tightness finally released in your throat, that was not imagination. That was my presence, confirming the declaration your mouth just made. The restoration extends beyond your inner world. Archangel Michael is rearranging the external pieces of your life with the same precision. Relationships that grew cold are about to feel the warmth of a new fire, not because the other person suddenly changed their mind, but because the frequency you carry is shifting. And when your frequency changes, everything that vibrates near you has to respond to the new signal or fall away. What stays is what belongs. What leaves was never calibrated for the version of you that is currently being assembled. Do not mourn what exits. Celebrate the space it creates. Because what I am sending into your life needs room, and cluttered rooms cannot receive deliveries. Michael says, some of you have been holding on to people out of loyalty to a version of the relationship that no longer exists. You keep watering a dead garden because the memory of its bloom is too beautiful to release. I honor that devotion. It speaks to the depth of your heart. But devotion to a memory is not the same as faithfulness to a future. And right now I am asking you to be faithful to the future I am building, even when that means releasing your grip on a past that served you beautifully in its season but has no seat at the table I'm preparing. This does not mean you are heartless. It means you are obedient. And there is a difference between cruelty and clarity that the enemy has worked very hard to blur in your understanding. When I prune a branch, it is not because the branch was bad. It is because the tree needs its energy directed toward the branches that will bear fruit in the coming season. Pruning hurts, but starvation of purpose hurts more. The people who are meant to be in your next chapter are already being prepared. Some of them are going through their own forge right now. Their edges are being smoothed. Their capacities are being expanded. And when the timing converges, when your readiness meets theirs, the connection will be so natural that you will wonder how you ever lived without it. That connection is part of what the 7 hours are arranging. Not every blessing takes the form of money or opportunity. Some blessings arrive wearing the face of a person whose presence will change the entire temperature of your life. Now Archangel Michael brings the second revelation, and this one goes deeper than the first. because the first revelation named what was draining you. This one names what has been blocking you, and they are not the same thing. Listen carefully. The blockage in your life, the invisible wall between you and the fullness I have been trying to pour into your existence, is not the enemy. It is not a generational curse. It is not a spiritual attack from outside forces. The blockage, and I say this with love, not accusation, is your own independence. You taught yourself to carry everything alone. You built a system where needing help was weakness and asking was failure. You became so skilled at surviving without assistance that you accidentally built a fortress around your heart that keeps out blessings, just as effectively as it keeps out threats. I watched you do it, year after year, brick by brick. You walled yourself inside a structure that said to the world, I can handle this myself. And the world believed you. Your family believed you. Your friends believed you. Even your enemies believed you. The only one who did not believe you was me. Because I could see inside the fortress. I could see the exhaustion hidden behind the competence. I could see the loneliness masked by productivity. I could see a human being who was drowning in self-sufficiency, while the ocean of my provision stood just outside the walls, waiting to be let in. Here is the raw truth of your situation. Your hands learned to grip during your survival season. And they learned that lesson so well that gripping became the only posture they know. But the next season is not about gripping, it is about receiving. And receiving requires open hands, hands that are unclenched, hands that are not braced against the next blow, hands that are positioned palm up instead of fist forward. This is the single most difficult shift I will ask of you, because it requires you to trust that if you release your grip, something will catch you. I will catch you. That's not a slogan. It's the most tested promise in the history of every soul I have ever guided through a wilderness. I caught Abraham when obedience looked insane. I caught Moses when the ocean looked like a dead end. I caught every prophet who stepped off the edge of reason and into the thin air of divine instruction. And I will catch you, but my hands cannot reach someone whose fists are closed. Open your grip today. That is the charge behind this revelation, not a suggestion. A command from the angel who has watched you white-knuckle your way through seasons that were supposed to be carried. So here's what we do, together. Starting now, you practice receiving in small doses. When someone offers to help, you do not say no out of reflex. When a compliment lands at your feet, you do not kick it away with false humility. When a moment of joy rises up from nowhere, you do not interrogate it for hidden costs. You simply stand still and let it wash over you, the way rain washes over ground that has been parched for far too long. That ground does not question the rain. It does not ask for credentials. It simply drinks. And so will you. Archangel Michael says, this adjustment in your posture, this shift from gripping to receiving, is the single most important preparation for what arrives in the 7-hour window. Because the blessing I am sending is not something you can grab. It is something you can only welcome. Like a bird that lands on an open palm but flies away from a clenching fist. The more relaxed your spirit becomes, the more accurately the blessing can find its landing pad inside your life. Tension repels what I send. Trust attracts it. And this hour is your practice session. If these revelations are touching chambers of your heart that have been sealed for years, if the specificity of what Archangel Michael is describing matches your experience with an accuracy that feels almost impossible, then you're exactly where you need to be. Subscribe to this channel today, because what you are hearing right now is not a one-time delivery. This is the beginning of a sustained conversation between heaven and your spirit that will carry you through the entire next season. Tap that button now so that the next time this voice speaks, you are already in the room. Now Archangel Michael takes you by the hand and walks you to the border. not a physical border, a spiritual one. The line between who you have been and who you are about to become. You can almost see it now. It runs across the landscape of your life like a horizon made of golden light. And everything on this side of it belongs to the season that is ending. And everything on the other side belongs to the season that is about to begin. On this side, you carry the memory of the wilderness, the long nights, the dry ground, the unanswered prayers that made silence feel like a language heaven spoke fluently. On this side, you learn things that no comfortable life could have taught you. You learn that survival is not glamorous, but it is holy. You learn that faith does not always feel like confidence. Sometimes it feels like showing up when every signal says, stay home. You learn that the gap between a promise and its fulfillment can stretch so wide that you forget the promise was ever made. All of that was real. All of that mattered, and none of it is going to waste. But you cannot bring all of it across. Some of what served you in the wilderness will strangle you in the promised land if you try to carry it over the threshold. The hypervigilance that kept you alive, the suspicion that protected you from predators, the emotional starvation diet that prevented you from wanting too much and being disappointed. These were wilderness tools, and wilderness tools are not designed for abundance. A canteen is not a well. A tent is not a house. The instincts that saved your life in the desert will suffocate you in the garden if you do not deliberately lay them down at the border. Michael speaks to the specific weights you need to release before you cross. First, the grudges. I know their names. I know the faces they carry. I know the arguments you have rehearsed in your mind 1,000 times. The devastating closing statements you prepared for courts that will never convene. Every person who wronged you and never apologized. Every voice that diminished you and walked away whistling. I see the files you keep on them. The mental evidence lockers where you store proof of their guilt as though someday a judge will ask for exhibits. No judge is coming. Not because justice does not exist, but because I am the judge, and I handle settlements differently than human courts. I do not need your evidence. I do not need your closing argument. I need your release. Drop the files at the border. Do not carry them into the land I am giving you. Vengeance is mine, and I execute it with a precision that anger could never achieve. Second, release the version of yourself that exists only to prove others wrong. That version served you well. It gave you fuel when motivation ran dry. It kept the fire burning on nights when pure faith was not enough to warm you. But that version of you is a war identity. And war identities do not thrive in peacetime. They look for enemies when there are none and mistake generosity for traps. Let that version rest. It earned its retirement. The version that crosses the border does not need to prove anything to anyone. Its only credential is the divine stamp on its forehead that says, "This one belongs to me." Now Archangel Michael lifts his voice to the highest register of authority and delivers the charge for this day. Today, you put down the weight that was never meant to cross this border. Today, you release the grip that survival taught you, and you open your hands to the posture of inheritance. Today, you stop measuring your worth by the wreckage behind you, and you start measuring it by the blueprint that heaven has drawn for your future. The ground on the other side of this line does not require you to fight for every meal. It does not require you to sleep with one eye open. It does not demand that you earn what was freely given before you were born. On the other side, the soil gives food without you having to break your back planting in ground that was never yours to till. On the other side, rain falls on schedule and doors open with a touch instead of a battering ram. Step across. Not tomorrow. Not when the evidence convinces your doubt. Today, with your hands open, with your defenses at your feet, with the full weight of every word Archangel Michael has spoken over you, in this hour pressing against your back like a divine wind, pushing you toward the land that has been calling your name for years. The border is not guarded. There is no toll. There is no examination at the gate. The only requirement is willingness. And you have demonstrated that willingness by remaining in this word when every distraction in the universe tried to pull you away. That is your ticket. That is your proof of passage. You are already approved for entry. This charge is not ceremonial. It is operational. It activates the moment you accept it. The systems of heaven that have been holding your blessing in escrow, waiting for the signal that you are ready to receive, just got the green light. Your willingness is the signal. Your attention is the key. And the vault that has been storing your answered prayers for years is now unlocking. Archangel Michael says, the reason this charge had to come at this point in the message, and not earlier, is because everything before it was preparation. I could not ask you to cross a border if you were still wearing the armor. I could not invite you into a banquet hall while your fists were clenched. The revelations that preceded this moment were not information. They were surgery. Each one removed a layer that would have prevented you from standing in the fullness of what I am about to pour out. You are now standing in the correct posture, unarmored, open-handed, willing. And the pouring begins now. Speak this over your life with a voice that does not waver. Say it out loud. Say it like you are signing a contract with heaven itself. I cross the border today. I leave my survival season at the threshold, and I walk into the inheritance that Archangel Michael has declared over my life. Every door that belongs to my assignment is opening. Every resource that was held in reserve is being released. And no weapon formed against this crossing shall prosper, because the same God who divided the waters is dividing my obstacles right now. Say it with your chest. Say it with conviction. Because the words you speak in this moment become the framework for everything that manifests in the 7 hours ahead. Now let me tell you what happens after the crossing. Because the other side is not empty. It has been furnished. While you were surviving the wilderness, while you were learning to breathe in thin air and walk on shifting sand, I was on the other side building rooms. Not shacks. Not temporary shelters that collapse in the first storm. Rooms. With foundations that go deeper than your doubt and walls that stand taller than your fear. Every room was designed for a specific function in your next chapter. There is a room for restored relationships. There is a room for financial harvest. There is a room for wholeness. And there is a room for the creative expression you buried because survival had no space for beauty. Each room will open on its own schedule. You do not need to rush from door to door. This is not a flash sale. This is a permanent address change. The rooms are not going anywhere because you are not going anywhere. Walk slowly. Let each room reveal itself in the order I designed, because the order matters. What you receive first prepares your hands for what you receive second. And what you receive second expands your capacity for what comes third. The sequence is not arbitrary, it is engineering. Now hear the final decree of Archangel Michael, the most authoritative word spoken in this entire message, written in fire, sealed with the unchangeable character of the one who sent me. I finish what I start. I have never laid a foundation and abandoned the structure. I have never spoken a word over a human life and allowed that word to return to me empty. Every prophecy I have uttered carries a completion date that was written before the prophecy was spoken. Every seed I have planted carries a harvest that was measured before the seed touched soil. And the work I have done in your life, the underground construction, the invisible engineering, the silent positioning of every piece on a board you cannot see, is no exception to that pattern. I will complete what I began in you. Not because you earned it, not because your faith was strong enough, but because my character does not permit unfinished work. When I sign a project, it gets built. When I issue a decree, it gets fulfilled. And this decree, spoken over you today in the hearing of heaven and earth, and every principality that has been watching your struggle, this decree says that your season of waiting is finished, and your season of receiving has officially begun. Let that settle into the deepest chamber of your spirit. Let it anchor there like a steel beam driven into bedrock. Because in the days ahead, when the old voices return to whisper that this was just emotion, that nothing really changed, that you will wake up tomorrow to the same problems and the same silence, you will need this decree to stand on. It will not move. It cannot be removed. Because it was not spoken by a human voice that forgets what it promised. It was spoken by the Archangel, who has never lost a decree to doubt and never will. Now Archangel Michael draws this word to its close, and the closing is just as intentional as the opening. Let me gather what has been spoken over you in this hour. You heard that good news is moving toward you within 7 hours. You heard that the foundation of your blessing was laid during your hardest season. You heard that the survival mechanism that saved you is now the lock that must be released. You heard that your hands must shift from gripping to receiving. You heard the charge to cross the border and leave the wilderness tools behind. And you heard the final decree that what was started in your life will be completed by the same hand that began it. This is not a scattered collection of spiritual ideas. This is a blueprint. And every piece fits together with the precision of a master engineer who has been designing your turnaround since before you knew you needed one. My blessing rests on you now like morning dew on a field that waited all night in darkness for the first touch of light. You are covered. You are seen. You are known. And you are loved with an intensity that would break every doubt in your chest if you could see it in its raw form. But you do not need to see it to receive it. The dew does not ask the field for permission. It simply settles, and so does my favor. Before you leave this moment, I ask you one more time to think of the people in your life who are fighting in silence. The friend whose texts got shorter. The family member whose laughter got quieter. The colleague whose eyes stopped meeting yours. Send this word to at least 3 of them right now through a text message, through your church group chat, through a direct message on Facebook. Let this be the day that heaven's voice reached not just you, but everyone your hands can touch. And if this ministry, this channel, this voice that carried Archangel Michael's words into your darkest hour has become something you want to see continue reaching souls in every corner of the earth, then I invite you to visit our Ko-Fi page through the link in the description or the pinned comment. Whether through a membership that connects you to this community on an ongoing basis, or a single gift that says, I believe in what this carries, your support becomes part of the infrastructure that makes sure the next person who is one bad night away from surrender gets to hear the same words that just rebuilt your foundation. There is no pressure, there is no obligation, but there is an invitation, and it stands as long as hearts are still breaking in silence. Subscribe to this channel right now so that you are positioned to receive the next word Archangel Michael sends. Because this is not the end of the conversation. This is the beginning. And the voice that met you today will meet you again, with fresh revelation, with deeper understanding, with blessings that build on the ones you are about to receive in the next 7 hours. And now, the final words of this hour belong to prayer, because every true word from heaven ends not in a pitch, but in a petition, not in a request, but in a covering. This is Archangel Michael's prayer over your life. Heavenly Father, I bring this child before your throne with both hands, full of the promises you asked me to deliver today. You know the road they have walked. You know the weight they have carried. You know the nights they survived and the mornings they barely managed. And, you know, better than anyone, that they are ready for what comes next. So I ask you now, release the blessing you stored in the 7-hour vault. Open the doors that were marked with their name. Pour into their finances, their health, their relationships, their purpose, with the same abundance that fills the ocean and never runs dry. Protect them as they cross the border from survival into inheritance. Guard their open hands from the reflex to clench. And let the first sign of your goodness arrive with such unmistakable clarity that their faith is not just restored but fortified for every season that follows this one. Cover their household. Cover their children. Cover the people they prayed for whose names only you and they know. And let this day, this specific day, become the marker stone they return to for the rest of their lives whenever they need to remember that you are a God who finishes what He starts. In the mighty name that commands every knee to bow and every chain to break, I seal this word. I seal this prayer. I seal this crossing. It is done. Amen.